And the Delta State government is vowed to investigate the controversial death of the Dowen College student Sylvester Oromoni Jr. In a statement, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa says he is fully in support of the Lagos State government's decision to launch an investigation into the death of Sylvester, who is also a native of Warri in Delta State. He says his government places priority on the lives of its citizens within and outside the state and is determined to pursue the case to the end. The 12-year-old is reported to have died after a series of tests and x-rays that indicated he sustained internal injuries from a severe beating. Dowen College, however, insists his injuries were sustained while playing football. And meanwhile, the Ijaw Youth Council has called for the suspension of the operating license of Dowen College over the alleged bullying and torture of Sylvester Oromoni Jr. The group calls for the arrest of the school's principal and the staff involved in the alleged cover-up of the incident. It alleges that Dowen College deliberately attempted to conceal the 12-year-old's death, adding that the school is complicit in the crime. The council is appealing to the police and other security agencies to be professional and not to be deterred by the massive influence behind the school. The school is reported to be a business concern of powerful people. And to discuss the controversy and growing concerns within the administration of private schools in Nigeria, let's bring in a rise analyst and human rights lawyer, Frank Tietie. Very warm welcome to Newsnight. These are not the best of times, from what we're hearing from our colleges, where people are either beaten to death, bullied, or some are raped and sodomized, like the case of the Premier Academy that is still yet to be investigated by the police. Official complicity in all of this.
Irresponsibility as well for those persons who take up positions of as regulators who don't do their job, and it's usually very costly. Lagos State government is taking the right path, unlike what happened in the FCT in the case of Karen Hapush, who died from alleged rape that was against her in the Premier Academy in Lugbe, Abuja. The Federal Capital Authorities have done nothing. The police has decided to do nothing. Has decided to show that it's most unprofessional. You don't need to appeal to the police. You don't need to beg the police to do its job.
Now, 4 or 5 months after,
a teenage girl, a girl child, sent to a boarding house, was raped and then died as a result of the remote causes of the rape.
Sodomized, not just raped.
Up to now, Nigeria as a country does not have sufficient explanation from the police or other law enforcement authorities with regards to what happened to that girl. What can only happen in such cases of impunity and unaccountability is more of such
situations occurring.
Violations of children's rights. I mean, it will keep on happening. Before now, we have raised alarm again and again in Nasarawa State, in the FCT, of how children are constantly being raped, being abused in the custody of schools, especially, and this is very important, private schools, meaning that private schools lack the capability. They create an impression that they're able to take care of children, whereas they don't, because they essentially exist to make money. So long as school fees has been paid, they mind their business. They don't even care what happens to the individual students, because in most cases they either over admit, or even when they don't have enough students, they just concentrate on admitting more without caring about standards. And the authorities of the state, in the case of FCT, which has exhibited gross incompetence, gross disregard for the rights of children, particularly with regards to what happened in Premier Academy. So I think Lagos is on a good start with this case.
Dowen, where Sylvester Oromoni Jr. was battered to death, and the authorities, including some of the teachers, the principal, the teachers, are said or are being alleged to be playing some hanky-panky.
The sad part of when children are abused in the custody of schools is that the first thing the school does is to defend itself, to defend its financial and proprietary interest, to defend its name so that it can continue to make money. They care less about the students. Now, how can you imagine that you run a school and you don't know that the students in your school are operating one form of cult or the other? You run a school and you don't care enough about the dignity and the rights of one student, each student of your school. You don't care because you haven't really invested in the personnel to do such things. Now, what always happens is that when there are reports of abuses against students in custody of school, the school rushes to to do what we call a cover up. They often lie, and that's why I particularly like the response of the Lagos State government. It's a strict liability issue. Shut down the school first before any other thing, because by the time you do so, other schools will learn that whatsoever happens to any child in your custody as a school, you must be held accountable. You must be held responsible.
Absolutely. Excuse me, they must be held responsible. But one state government, Governor Fintiri of Adamawa State, only recently instituted guidance and counseling departments on units in all primary and secondary schools. Shouldn't that be enforced in our colleges?
The problem we have is about private schools. In the first place, many of them don't even need to exist because, and again, they exist because of the failure of public schools. So when we see governors responding to the peculiar situations that are being faced in our public schools, it is encouraging. For example, you can imagine how much there is proliferation of information through the internet, and you don't think at this point that various schools, and I've seen it happening in Oyo State before now, and even in Lagos State, where we think that association should only exist to contribute money for the owner of the school to continue to expand the school and make more money, rather than parents taking serious responsibility. Because what is most important for us as a country, as a people, as parents and as proprietors should be the children. Unfortunately, what happens is that school proprietors in the first place, private school proprietors importantly, emphatically, go into this business simply to make money and forget that they need to hold on to standards in education, psychology, and curriculum studies, ensuring that students are taken care of first and foremost, their psychological state of mind, their physical well-being, but they don't care. And we will continue to have this kind of situation when the authorities, the regulators, don't impose strict sanctions against violators. And then the state government, starting with the FCT, that is grossly failing horribly in the case of Karen Apuch regarding Premier Academy Lugbe, failing hopelessly, disgracing us as a country, failing to realize that its failure to properly institute investigation of that school, it failed to shut down the school, showing that it disregarded the life of its own citizen and the student of the school.
Isn't the police complicit in this?
The police
whose jurisdiction does this
the
lie?
Police is purely unprofessional in the case of Karen Apuch
police command
with regards to Premier Academy. It appears some unwieldy political influence is just being exercised against the police force, and it's unbelievable that the Nigeria police will not be able to give a cogent explanation as to what killed that girl in the custody of Premier Academy Lugbe. We will continue to have all of this if somebody is not held accountable or responsible.
Well, thanks very much, Frank Tietie. Your emotions are quite understandable there, because these killings really cannot be allowed to continue. Frank Tietie is a Rise News analyst and a human rights lawyer.